What everyday skill becomes suspicious if you're too good at it? Story 1. This is literally how the series Psych starts. The main character, Sean Spencer, is too good at being observant, and because he keeps sending tips to the local police, they call him in for questioning because they thought he might be involved in all those crimes. So he has to pretend to be a psychic. Such a good show. It influenced my username. Story 2. I've forgotten my apartment key to the point that I can pick my own lock. People find that suspicious. So, would you remember to take your lockpick kit with you, but not your keys? A lockpick kit works on a lot of doors, but the key will only open the one. I kid you not, when I was a kid, the apartment I lived in could be opened with a butter knife. We'd lock ourselves out and just ask the neighbor for a butter knife and get back in. Strangely, there was an unspoken code that we would never use one to enter someone else's apartment. My brother had a friend growing up whose house front door lock was broken, and if you jiggled it just right, would unlock. All fun and games till my brother went to visit on a holiday from college and barged in, as was his tradition, only to find his buddy's family moved. Luckily, the new owners weren't home, and he noped out quickly. Story 3. Using your peripherals. I've become really good at mine. Another answer is looking back and forth. When multiple people stare at me, I look at one person, then the next, and repeat until they either ask me what I'm doing or stop staring at me. Wait, so being able to look back and forth at people is a skill you have? Oh, son of a... I just got it. Ah, dang it. Story 4. Strep throat tests. Used to get strep a lot as kids, so by the time I was tested for it as a 20-year-old, I had a process down. They stick in the big popsicle stick to hold down your tongue, and then they swab the back of your throat while you try not to gag. Well, I happened to be tested by a relatively new, young, attractive doctor this particular time, and when he complimented me on doing well on the test and not gagging, my response was, "Thanks, I've had practice." If not suspicious, it was at the very least mortifying after realizing the implication of what I said. Haha. As a nurse who has performed these, any adult that could do a throat swab with zero gag, cough, or flinch always made me wonder. Reminds me of 6th grade lunch when a guy proved to us that he had no gag reflex by repeatedly ramming a breadstick down his throat. His face started turning red and everything. The best part is that no one ever questioned his gag reflex in the first place, and I think he just wanted to show off, lol. Story 5. We play this drinking game where you take the paper bag from the store, put it on the floor standing up, and you have to bend down on one foot and grab it with your teeth. Each round, you trim a few centimeters off the top and keep lowering the bag until there's a winner. One of my very unathletic friends at the time would easily win every round. It would just be him, and he was flexible enough to get the bag only 6 inches off the ground. People were super impressed, and I joked, "It's all that practice from sucking your own D." And the look he gave me, combined with the awkward laugh, made me think I might have been closer to the truth than I would have hoped. You forgot the last part of your story where you approached him in private and just whispered, "Teach me your ways." Story 6. I have a friend who could memorize numbers, especially plates of vehicles. He'd then be able to recall it after months in totally random conversations. So when I was young and bored on my car trips, my mom would always try to get me to play the license plate game. TPE, tape, terpene, terpiscore, timpani. Mom, timpani is with an I, not an E. You mistyped tamponade. Turns out the reason Mom was so obscenely good at the time that she could referee it instantly and nearly perfectly is that apparently she is playing it basically at all times just without saying anything about it. But if something goes down, there is a near 100% chance Mom will know the license plate of the car in question. She has proven this way too many times. My aunt taught me a game that involved making names or phrases out of the letters. Like CPK 178, Charles Patrick Carey is doing 178 miles per hour. Or TSB 345, train spotted passing at 345. That was more than 20 years ago, and sometimes I'll catch myself playing when on a long road trip. Tamponade sounds like a drink for vampires. Story 7. Cleaning liquid spills. If Junior knocks over their glass or the cat gets too close and personal with a fish tank, most people just tend to throw a bathroom towel over it or get out the wet vac. Not super effective and tends to allow time for staining. Some salt, aerosolized carpet foam, and some paper towels will clean up anything like it was never there and in record speed, and all for the low price of making people uncomfortable as they imagine you as a mob cleaner. For extra points, using this method to clean blood out of the carpet or off cheap porous tiles equals people's faces are funny as F. Where was this blood cleaning advice when I needed it last month? Hydrogen peroxide is also very effective with getting still wet blood out of your clothes. Former Navy corpsman. Story 8. Noticing cameras. A friend of mine does that. He can point out any camera in public spaces. I developed a similar skill while playing Ingress. Portals are everywhere. I install surveillance cameras professionally, so same. To the person who developed the skill of finding portals in Ingress, they're just on the app. I'm not sure how it's a skill to follow Google Maps to a spot with a portal. For those who don't know, the game is similar to, and by the people who made, Pokemon Go. I must just not remember part of that game that well. Otherwise, the word skill is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Story 9. Fabricating stories. I had a workmate that used to do that all the time while I was on the International Space Station. Story 10. Being unbothered by blood and guts. I'm a veterinarian. I've spent days up to my elbows in all manner of bodies and parts and fluids. I can watch surgery or necropsy videos over lunch. I did an eye surgery on Tuesday and somebody had to catch the new kid. The big ones aren't allowed to get faint. It's very inconvenient. Related aside, when the nice young lady at the bank says, "Oh my God, there's blood on your shirt," assuring her that it isn't your own, in fact, offers no reassurance. I love animals so much, and when people are, "Why don't I just be a vet?" it's like, I don't want to see their insides. Story 11. Walking quietly. Story 12. Walking with minimal sound. I creep up on people all the time. I don't mean to, but I make almost no sound when I walk. Same. I clip my keys to my belt loop in public so people can hear me and not be startled/run into me. I'm the same way. I make my wife scream all the time by walking into a room without her noticing. It happened so often that when our son was somewhere between 1 and 2, he also started screaming whenever I walked into a room. He thought it was just a thing we did in our family. It happens to other people outside of home too. I start talking to people and they jump out of their skin. Same. I'm also 6'3", so it really can startle people. I used to work with an older Russian woman, and one time I accidentally scared her, and she said, "How do you do that? You are like a cat." I do this too, but I'm also 6'2" and built like a skeleton, so it contributes to a lot of unintentional jump scares. I used to walk really quietly, then I got older, and now I just make all kinds of sounds when I move. Story 13. Remembering someone else's schedule. I used to be an executive assistant to many people with specific wants and needs. I got really good at remembering what people liked based on not only what they would tell me, but also things they would do and how they react. I eventually became the guy that takes care of things before they become a problem. Sometimes it can be a superpower, but other times people get weirded out by it. Man, you could play Stardew Valley without 22 villager wiki tabs open. Story 14. People that are able to drastically change their personality or the way they talk and act when around different groups of people or someone else arrives. For me, it's a coping mechanism I developed from childhood of abuse and neglect. You have to be a different person to avoid the triggers, and sometimes it just catches you as an adult. Same, childhood abuse does teach you to adapt quickly to survive, which turns into a lifelong coping mechanism to fit in, also survive. But it leaves you not knowing who you actually are, which can cause an identity crisis when triggered by trauma such as rejection, abandonment later in life. Story 15. There was a restaurant in a Hyatt hotel that had a casino. The waiter from that restaurant remembered our preference when we showed up with a friend 6 months later. You guys were either amazingly awesome restaurant patrons or a fricking nightmare. I'm a former waitress/bartender turned RN. The same happens with patients. I compare seeing patients in medicine to being a waiter all the time. The two are so similar it's uncanny. There was a Greek bartender at this whiskey bar in my hometown that would do the same thing. Every time I came in, I looked different. He still remembered my drink. First time I was on my Harley, so I looked like a biker. The second time was a date a few months later, so I was dressed nicer and my beard was better groomed. Third time was probably just standard issue blue jeans and white t-shirt, again a couple of months later. No matter what I was wearing or which girl I was with or how much time passed, I'd sit down at the bar and he'd look at me for a few seconds like he was digging through his memory and say, "Old-fashioned bright?" That dude was eerily good and cool as crap. Are you sure you don't just look like a guy that wants an old-fashioned? I mean, an old-fashioned is a pretty good bet in general, especially in a whiskey bar. Yeah, maybe that is just the drink that bartender is known for and likes to make. Or maybe he's gonna talented Mr. Ripley you. Who knows? Story 16. Counting bills quickly. Learned when in Uzbekistan, a place where the highest denomination was 1,000, but a meal at a restaurant cost 20 to 30,000. I bartended in New York City where closing time was after 4 a.m., so the quicker I counted out my register, the quicker I could go home. I can count a stack of bills quick. Retail management without machines can do it the same. The bigger stores have bill counters and weigh their change. Story 17. Remembering things about people. I've lied about not knowing things to not seem like a creep. Dude, I do this all the time. I don't want to seem like a creep either, I just have a good memory. I have a horrible memory, but will remember really random things people tell me for years. This is sort of me with names. I'm generally very good at remembering names and would memorize names quickly in school. People are sometimes surprised when I call them by their name without ever having a conversation with them. I usually pretend I don't know their name until they give it to me. I suck at names and feel bad as it makes me seem like I just don't care. But I seriously just don't remember names well at all. I end up being really vague about the fact or trait. I'll be like, oh, you like that type of thing, right? I might be wrong. It's super passive, but it hasn't backfired yet. Story 18. Getting kids to trust me within seconds of meeting me. Ped nurse. That seems like a useful skill to have, but there's no way I'm going to have how to get kids to trust me within seconds of meeting me in my Google search history. In case anyone is genuinely interested, kids are smarter than adults take them for, and have a keen sense of when someone is only interacting with them out of enlightened self-interest. The main way to get kids to trust you is to interact with them with respect to their agency and for them to understand that all of your interactions with them are only for their best interest. Kids can totally pick up on the vibes of people who see them as like cute stuffed animals or whatever rather than humans who deserve a level of respect. Source: experience as head lifeguard, digital English tutor, and karate instructor. FBI have found new suspect of interest. Same. I'm a tiny woman who tends to dress like a friendly hippie. I smile at other kids because I want them to play with my kid. I've had many little kids sit in my lap, grab my hand, or otherwise want me to play with them. I have the opposite, where kids tend to avoid me since I'm a big, bald, bearded guy, and frankly, I'm just fine with that. I've seen my nephew sneeze directly into my sister's open mouth, so I'm just fine if kids want to keep their distance. Story 19. I will remember your car and every detail about it before I can remember your name. Story 20. Remembering oddly specific details about someone's past. I tend to remember odd crap people say for years. It tends to freak people out. The worst reactions are when someone was just making up something for a story and have no memory of saying it in the first place. This is me. I remember conversations, jokes, dates, hangouts, text messages, meme exchanges, and on and on. And it is weird when ages have passed and I make a joke or say, hey, like that time we were talking about, and they have zero idea because it was literally 18 months ago. I have also bought gifts for people based on this stuff, and they just ended up confused and not sure of the relevance. Story 21. Being able to recognize pills. No, I'm not a drug dealer, I just work in a pharmacy, and some of them are very recognizable. Pharmacists are just licensed drug dealers. Story 22. Microsoft Excel. I found that by taking over reporting from others because it took them so much time. I'd automate it to pull from the database where the previous owner was spending 2 hours a day copy-paste hundreds of cells. A couple hours work once and I hit a button. Done. I'd use the release right away, even with the script open, refresh, save, and email it. This caused people to not trust the numbers, so now I still put in the data but hold off on releasing it for a bit, even a bit late on occasion. If you have Outlook, there's a function to delay sending an email until a specified time. You can program it to send your email out anywhere from a minute to a year after you hit send. LPT, always turn the delay on for 1 minute if you tend to forget to attach attachments and remember the moment you send the email. I had a guy give me a stack of papers and say that these had to be put into Excel and their POS database. Said it normally takes 3 days. I laughed, scanned them all into PDF, converted to text, and then automated it. I was done with a double check a couple hours in. He didn't believe me, so he went through them all by hand. Took him 2 days, and he didn't find any errors. I find more often than not that people who don't trust automations and Excel and whatnot tend to be older people who insist on doing it by hand, which is slower and also less accurate. Perfect! Story 23. Knowing a friend's schedule. Especially for close friends, I've remembered their schedules just from them randomly bringing up what classes they have in conversations. Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 24. Lockpicking. My friend got locked out, so I grabbed the bobby pins out of my hair and started picking. He thought I was a criminal. It was a master lock. If lockpicking lawyer had anything to say about it, master lock is literally the worst locks on the planet. Problem with letting people know you can lockpick is twofold. One, if something ever gets stolen, you are immediately a suspect. Two, whenever anyone gets locked out, they call you and expect you to come over and open their door for them for free. Story 25. Shuffling cards. Yep. One time you show how you can deal from the bottom and suddenly you're out of the weekly poker game. I loved learning card tricks when I was younger. It was an easy at-home thing to do before the internet. As an adult, I get the logic, but does that mean the only thing stopping those people from cheating and screwing over their friends is simply the opportunity? I can answer that for you. Yes. For a lot of people, yes. Welcome to the world where people in general can often suck. Story 26. Avoiding people. Everyone assumes I'm up to something because I spend so much time alone and out of sight. We're really stretching the meaning of skill today, aren't we? Story 27. Breaking into someone's car. A few years ago, I was at a new job and a coworker locked her keys in her car. I got the door open in under a minute. The security guard watched me and had some concerns with the speed at which I opened that car without damaging it. Truth of the matter is that the guard wasn't paying attention completely to what I was doing. My first car was a two-door sports car and I learned about a design flaw with those cars when my dumb butt locked my keys in the ignition. She had a similar car and her keys in the ignition, so I took advantage of that design flaw to get the door open without damage to the car. Story 28. When you instinctively go to private search on your phone. I use private search for everything except adult entertainment. If Google is going to track my data, then Google can watch me jerk off. They're tracking you regardless. Private mode just keeps you from getting the reminder of your last activities. Story 29. Staying calm. I didn't think of this answer, but it's a really good one. I've heard the phrase, "How are you so calm about this?" on more than a few occasions. The trick is being so overwhelmingly numb and devoid of emotion that you just aren't invested in the outcome. It's kind of awkward being the stoic during funerals. Story 30. Moving through unreasonably tight and cluttered spaces normally. My friends and I used to hang out in an extremely cluttered warehouse that belonged to a hoarder friend. It was full to the point where moving at all without getting stuck on something or causing a garbage avalanche was difficult. And there I was, just guiding through hills of hoarded garbage like some kind of ghost. They told me it was creepy. What are you, a video game character moving through a tight space to mask loading times? Get out of here with your tight spaces, Kratos. Story 31. I have a friend who just knows random stuff, like he is damn near lawyer level of proficiency with things like legal procedure, technical knowledge to include how to bypass code locks. He's really smart on finance and how to take advantage of situations, all sorts of stuff. He's not a spy or criminal, he just loves to Google this stuff and will read for hours on end about it. But to those who don't know him, he's suspect. When my dad was alive, he was exactly like that, laughed my butt off. Living Wikipedia. I miss those things about my own dad. He used to read so much and would just bounce ideas around or explain things I never heard about. Everything feels quieter without him. I miss his enthusiasm. Story 32. Remembering things about them they forgot. I told my friend I was getting a job at a store we know. She told me, "I think I've been there before." Then I told her she has, and I repeated the conversation we had word for word. I got some weird looks from her, LOL. I'm good at stuff like that. My friend and I were talking about a hike and I mentioned that we have already done it. She said we hadn't yet. So I told her the approximate date, what we did before and after, what we talked about on it, etc. If you asked me what I had for dinner yesterday, I would struggle. All you people answering good memories on this thread, you would think some of you would remember seeing this answer a dozen other times and not feel the need to post it again. Story 33. Telling almost instantly by feel if a bill is real or counterfeit. Though I think more people should definitely be able to do it. Lower denomination U.S. counterfeit bills can look amazing, but the feel is always off. Story 34. Recognizing sounds. I've knowledge of everything happening around me through the sounds. Story 35. Being able to recite the alphabet backwards with speed. Story 36. Being able to quickly convert ounce and gram. Extended version always referring to kilograms as keys. 16 ounces to a pound, 20 more to a key. I had a coworker who could weigh out items in the deli accurately to the ounce by hand. Said it's a skill from another line of work. After working in a pizza place forever and weighing dough balls out every morning, I probably don't need a scale anymore these days either. Story 37. Googling, oddly. People find it unsettling how quickly I can learn crap that untrained people aren't supposed to know. All I did was Google search till I found the info and then gave it a try. I'm not especially good at Googling, but it's baffling to see how bad at Googling some other people are. It's very helpful to be able to learn stuff quickly. I would argue the merit of that being a skill, but after trying to teach my parents how to Google for years now, I have to admit it is definitely a skill, and apparently not an easy one to learn. Story 38. Hiding things. I do this, only not deliberately. I can put something down, then wait it a minute later and not be able to find it. It's like a crappy superpower. Story 39. Lying. And not like the everyday white lie like, how are you? I'm okay. No, I mean the Kaiser Soze kind of lying. I'm super good at lying when the need arises. Like, very good on the spot, and it freaked out an old friend of mine. I'm just super creative and have the worst case scenario mind, so I think of a lot of possibilities. I guess lying is an everyday skill, but I don't feel it is at all odd for people to be suspicious of someone who excels at it. Story 40. Spatial awareness. I can look at something and tell you whether or not it will fit onto a wall, into a box or car, through a hallway or stairwell, etc. I was at a shipping store a few months ago and a guy was in line behind me trying to figure out which size box to get for the box he was trying to fit into it. I pointed at a specific size and said, "That one, but only if you put your box on this side up." It slid in perfectly and he gave me the weirdest look. Somehow, though, I always seem to bump into the corners of tables. Story 41. Being happy. Everyone always thinks I'm high. I mean, I am high, but I'm happy for other reasons, too. Story 42. Cleaning out stains. I cut my hand pretty badly once and blood got onto my white shirt. I tried to clean it myself, but the stain never got out. I told my mom, who told me to bring it with me when I came back for Christmas break, and she cleaned it. By the way, she didn't even bleach it. Her ability to clean stains so well has since been suspicious to me. Story 43. Navigating government bureaucracy. I mean, I guess that could be an everyday skill to some and a bit creepy, so you are technically correct. The best kind of correct. Story 44. Good at finding purposefully hidden items, thanks to my parents hiding my devices as a kid. I even put them back after use. It got to the point where I had to watch out small stuff like specifically placed objects which are essentially traps my parents put to see if I opened something up to get it. It ranged from hairpins to even clean-wiped surfaces and more. Story 45. Looking left, then right, then left, then right without turning your head. You shifty eyes son of a gun. Story 46. Finding a lot of information about someone online given a small amount of information about said person to go off of. Story 47. Tying knots. Story 48. I'm very good at getting detailed information in my peripheral vision. I don't have to be looking directly at someone to study them. Makes me sound like a pervert, but it's a skill I developed because of working/living in a situation where letting someone know you're watching them had bad consequences. But so is being ignorant of what they were doing. It's really effing handy. Also somewhat related, reading upside down has had its benefits. Story 49. Being a good listener. People assume you're a stalker. Story 50. Knife sharpening. Hey, I'm pretty darn good at knife sharpening. I like to brush my fingers across the newly sharpened blades, staring at my friends, telling them about just how sharp they are. I'm sure they don't find that odd. Story 51. Remembering things for other people. I pick up random things in conversation, not necessarily in a conversation with me. I like to listen. I'll wish you good luck on that special thing tomorrow. I'll tell you happy birthday. I'll tell you not to forget something. It has saved myself and people around me from getting into crappy situations. Imagine a guy at work who tells you not to forget your wife's birthday next week. Yeah, I'm that guy. ADD has taught me to remember the things I pay attention to. Story 52. Guessing passwords. I have video games addiction during young age. My parents changed the password once a week because I kept guessing it. When they say a word in a weird way, paying close attention to their facial expression, listening to their tapping sound, the state of the keyboard is in are things that helped me. The key is to know how the person thinks. I'm also able to remember most passwords that I have seen once inadvertently. People need to get better at passwords. My passwords are such long strings of nonsense altered by random aspects of what the password is for that you could know every detail about my life and never come close. Story 53. Meat trimming. Story 54. Top-notch marksmanship. Story 55, swallowing a banana all at once. Story 56, lying. Wait, no, that's wrong. The better you are, the less likely anybody notices. The problem comes up when you use your skills to help somebody out, and they later remember just how effective and seamless your cover story was. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.